Hey all, welcome back to Exile Wargaming. Now today we're going to be going over something a little bit different. Recently I acquired a Drukhari army, and after getting my teeth kicked in a couple games against CSM and Space Marines, I decided I might as well try my hand at Ynnari before the Drukhari hit the shelves. So today we have a battle report between Ynnari and Chaos Space Marines in the Pactbound Zealots detachment. Now, first things first, let's go over the list. A few weeks ago, we acquired a Drukhari army, and we put out a video as well comparing Drukhari to a lot of our Harlequin units and how there are a ton of similarities. So my thought behind this list is to just replace our traditional Harlequin units with an acceptable Drukhari counterpart. That would be Incubi and Witches, but we also get to bring something else a little extra to really change the dynamic of how we play this game. So we have Yvrain and the Vizarch both attached to an 11-man unit of troops. We have a Troop Master attached to a 5-man unit of troops. We have Drazar attached to a 5-man unit of Incubi, and Lilith attached to what will be a 5-man unit of Witches. It's split up inside of a Venom, so we'll have something extra, another 5 Witches to hold the home field objective or come in from strategic reserve to be useful later on in the game. We have 2 units of Warp Spiders. We have 2 Beastmasters. This is the change in dynamic. These Beastmasters can scout 9 inches and move 12. It allows us to move block our opponent in their deployment zone on the first turn, then stage our Falcons and everything else in advantageous positions afterwards. If we get second turn, the Beastmasters could just hold on an objective, be a cheap unit with a ton of wounds to force our opponents to come outward. Beyond this, we have 2 Skyweavers with Haywire and Starbolus, and then 3 Falcons to carry around our Witches, Incubi, and troops after. Now, this army is coming in at 15 total units at 1,995 points. At the end of this game, we'll kind of evaluate what I feel is a better setup. I don't know if this is the optimal style Ynnari list. I don't believe it to be by any means, but I do think that it's a really good way to compare the Drukhari units with our Harlequin troops themselves and just see who comes out on top. Now, our opponent is bringing Chaos Space Marines in the Pactbound Zealots detachment. Now, this army is hyper aggressive. I had the privilege of watching it run over a good number of armies here recently. In fact, when I played a game with Drukhari, I got absolutely steamrolled, going second, of course. But this list is bringing 2 Demon Princes with wings. They both are Slaanesh, so they can advance and charge. One of the Demon Princes has the Intoxicating Elixir, which gives it a 5-up Feel No Pain as well. They have 2 Dark Communes attached to 2 units of Accursed Cultists. So these units can scout 6 inches and they can advance and charge. There are 4 units of 5 Legionnaires with Last Cannons in 2 Rhinos. There's a unit of Chaos Bikers. There's a unit of 5 Warp Talons and 2 Vindicators. Rounding out the list, they have Cultist Mob just to hold the backfield sticky and screen whenever they need to. Now, this army is coming in at 15 total units at 2,000 points on the nose. It is very, very capable of getting the majority of its force into our lines on turn 1. And then everything else, the Rhinos, the Legionnaires, the Vindicator, can all start staging on objectives and just continue the push afterwards. This list is pretty spicy. We're going to see how well we deal with it today. Now, our mission today will be Linchpin, Raise Banners, and Dawn of War style deployment on Terrain Layout 5. Now, getting into deployment, our opponent decided really to just split up their force and contest everything they possibly can right off the bat. So on the right side here, we have a big unit of Accursed Cultists. We have a Demon Prince, a Rhino with 2 units of Legionnaires, and a Vindicator. We have the same happening on this side of the board with a Vindicator behind the rune, Rhino as well, so they can launch the Legionnaires out and they can get on this objective turn 1 without having to advance. They also have a unit of bikers, and the cultists on the backfield just to sticky this objective, get some banners early on. The Warp Talons are in reserve. But basically, our opponent can scout these Accursed Cultists up 6 inches into this rune. Then they can advance and charge, get an extra 12. I mean, realistically, they can get about here on the first turn before the charge. The Demon Prince can move 14 and advance and charge. He can get to right around here and just charge whatever he wanted afterwards. We're kind of hoping that maybe they do that and miss a charge, but we can't deploy at the back of our deployment zone. We cannot hide for the entirety of this game. I've seen this matchup play out and it's not good. So what we ended up doing is placing our Skyweavers over here so they can come out if the Vindicator wants to do anything, or they can just be a good objective holder. We have our Falcon with Lilith on this side of the board. We have our Beast Pack over here as well. So they can either scout up and try to move block our opponent in their deployment zone. Then we can move our Falcons up and be in range to get out, disembark, shoot, and charge the next turn. Or we can, if we get second turn, move this Beast Pack up into this rune and just be something to hold our opponents back from dropping into our entire lines. The Beast Pack over here can do the same thing. We can either move block all of this, or we can move block this angle as well, which I think may be a better option. If we get the second turn, this Beast Pack will end up just moving into this rune most likely, or they may back up a little bit so we don't give our opponent a good turn 1 charge. Now we have both of our units of Warp Spiders back here. They can pretty much jump out and be wherever they need at any point in time and just support whatever flank is necessary. We have a Venom back here with Witches in it. They're just going to let the Witches out on turn 1, and the Venom will go off and do whatever it needs to afterwards, maybe pick up some Incubi if it makes sense. And then Yvraine's unit with the Vizark is also right back here up against this wall, just ready to push out if they need to. We have a Falcon and Skyweavers over here just to keep our opponent honest. We ended up putting these here very early on in the game, and then as our opponent started stacking everything down here, I decided to move everything else to the other side of the board. I am fine giving up one of these points throughout the game. This would be their easiest natural expansion, so I'm okay giving that to them. We'll most likely just reroute all of this to the other side of the board. So let's get into the first turn. Now our opponent wins the turn 1 dice roll and gets to go first. This is not good for us. They end up drawing Recover Assets and Cleanse. We make our scout moves, and our Beast Pack ends up moving from this portion here into this rune. And our other Beast Pack ends up moving backwards so that this Accursed Cult unit can't scout into us and then charge on the first turn. We don't want to give them the extra movement to get close to our deployment zone this early on in the game. Our opponent ends up moving up this unit of Accursed Cultists that was down here up into this rune with the scout move. Then they advance. I think he gets like an 11 total inches of movement and comes up right to this corner of the wall, which is the worst case scenario for us. The other unit of Accursed Cultist just moves up into this rune and I believe is going to cleanse this objective this turn. The bikes in the middle move up to hold this objective, and they cleanse or recover assets, and then both the units of Legionnaires end up coming out to hold this objective afterwards. This last cannon ends up putting a shot into our Falcon. Everything bounces. They failed to wound. And then this one ends up cleansing this objective. The cultists down below recover assets as well, and we are kind of off to the races. The Demon Prince that started over here ended up getting 14 inches of movement, advanced, and used a stratagem that will allow him to charge afterwards. In our opponent's charge phase, they make everything that they need to. The Accursed Cultists end up charging into the Falcon. I believe 4 or 5 of them ended up attacking here. The Demon Prince ended up attacking the Falcon as well, and everything else went into the Beastmaster. In that pack himself, they were able to wipe out absolutely everything. So we did lose that squad. We lost the Falcon, and we lost one of the witches in Lilith's unit. In our turn two, we really have to start making something happen. We end up drawing Call the Horde and Engage on all fronts. Now we end up discarding Engage on all fronts for a CP at the end of this turn, but really we have to make the counter push now. So what we do is we let out the witches from the Venom here. They're going to hold this home field objective, and then we move the Venom out to this area to screen out the Warp Talons. We move our Skyweavers that were positioned right back up here down so they can get shots on the Vindicator. If we need to, we could try to charge afterwards and just try to tie up this unit. That's most likely what we're going to go for. We end up shifting our Falcon from this rune out here. This had Drazar and the Incubi in it. Again, just allowing us some good firing angles. The Beast Pack that was over here moves on to the center objective, and then your Vrain's unit ends up pushing out in order to engage the Accursed Occultists. Now, we do not want to fire at the Cultists at this point because they can make a move in the shooting phase towards the opponent that shot them. So I think it's D6 inches. We don't want them to get in combat beforehand. We want our bonuses to wound for getting the charge. Now, this was pretty awesome. We end up moving both units of Warp Spiders out to try and deal with the Demon Prince, and then Lilith's unit comes up here as well with the Skyweavers. So these Skyweavers over here ended up putting shots into this Vindicator. They were only able to put in about 3 wounds. We rolled pretty bad. Lilith's unit ends up throwing grenades into the Demon Prince, and then the Warp Spiders were able to bring it down with just devastating wounds. I think we rolled 20 shots for the first unit, 23 for the other. We did something like 11 mortal wounds from the Warp Spiders, and then another 3 from the grenades, and he wasn't able to make enough feel no pain. So we are able to bring down the Demon Prince. This is something very nice. I missed playing with Warp Spiders for a while. We've been using D cannons to fulfill this role, just being able to engage anything that we need to at any point in time. Warp Spiders do a really, really great job of this, with the addition of being a little cheaper and also having some mobility and the ability to do actions afterwards. So all of this moves up. We bring down the Demon Prince. These Skyweavers that fired into the Vindicator also ended up putting some shots into one of these squads of Legionnaires and brought a couple down with the Star Bolus. This Falcon over here ended up putting shots into one of the Legionary squads as well and brought down quite a few of them. I believe the Shuriken Cannon ended up firing into this unit of bikers over here. Everything else pretty much remained the same. We were able to bring down the Demon Prince. We were able to bring down one of these units of Legionnaires down to 1 or 2 guys, and we're going to move on to the charge phase. In the charge phase, we just make the push everywhere we possibly can. We push your Vrain's unit into the Accursed Occultists with the 11 troop and the Vizarch. We push the Skyweavers into the Accursed Occultists and a unit of Warp Spiders. We didn't have room for the other squad, but they would have failed their charge anyway. We rolled it and they got double ones. Now, the Accursed Occultists were brought down to 3 models, and they ended up rolling something like 21 or 22 attacks, and then they were getting lethal and sustained. So even with lightning fast reactions, we were taking a ton of wounds. So they were able to bring down 6 or 7 of our Harlequin troops, which was very, very nice for them. We have to hold on to Call the Horde. Hopefully we can bring down these remaining 3 in the next turn and score that afterwards. Now, Lilith's unit ended up charging the full unit of Legionnaires on the objective here and wiped them out before the witches even got to attack. Lilith is pretty good with their 12 attacks. The Beast Pack in the middle ended up charging the Chaos Bikers and were able to bring down only one of them. In the Clapback, they weren't able to bring down any of ours either. Now, the Skyweavers on the side over here ended up charging the Vindicator. In the shooting phase, we got 6 wounds through with the Haywire and then 4 with the Star Bolus. So we brought the Vindicator down to 1. What we ended up doing is charging. We didn't get a long enough charge that we wanted, so he was able to heroically intervene with the Accursed Occultists. But even though they're only strength 3, we end up rolling a 6 to wound. He rolls a 1 on the dice, and the Vindicator does end up exploding. So he does a wound to the Skyweavers, or 2 wounds to the Skyweavers. He does a wound to the Accursed Occultists, and then the Rhino takes a wound as well. These guys are wiped out by the Cultist unit afterwards. I wasn't really thinking that he was going to heroically intervene, but I was playing around it, and he ended up doing just that. So Skyweavers are very good into Rhinos and Vindicators. It was pretty incredible. At the end of this turn, we were able to bring down 1 Chaos Biker, a Vindicator, a unit of Legionnaires. We brought another one down to 1. We killed the Demon Prince, and we were able to do some pretty good work into a unit of Accursed Occultists. So it's turning out to be a pretty good turn for us. In our opponent's movement phase, they end up trying to gain some more board position back. This Vindicator that was down here ends up moving out and gets right within 24 inches of this Falcon. I should have seen this coming, and for some reason I did not. It was able to wipe it off the board. Vindicators are very good into our transports. A unit of Legionnaires got out of the Rhino over here and is making its push to deal with this Beast Pack with the Bikers. The Rhino that was behind this rune ends up coming out, and it is within rapid fire range, brings down almost all of Lilith's unit. The secondary fire from the Vindicator ended up firing this in here as well, and they're able to bring down that entire squad. So we are going to lose a Falcon and Lilith, and see where it goes in the combat phase. But at the end of their movement, we did rapid ingress one of our Falcons. This one has the Troop and the Troop Master inside of it right here. There was nowhere else really beneficial we can get it into, but we should be able to disembark our troops about 3 inches out. They're going to get that 8-inch move. We should be right up here. We tried to position it so I can get in Melta range immediately on this Vindicator and then make a push for their home field objective afterwards. In the charge phase, the Legionnaires and the Bikers ended up in combat with the Beastmaster in the center. They're able to bring down all of them, but the Beastmaster himself and the Clawed Fiend, who I believe was at 1 wound. Yvraine's unit and the Warp Spiders, everything over here, were able to bring down the remaining Accursed Occultists. So we are going to walk out with 5 points on Call the Horde. Everything else pretty much stays the same. In our turn 2, we end up drawing Containment and Assassination. So we are falling behind a little bit this turn. The Warp Talons being able to rapid ingress just seemed a little bit more impactful against us. So I prioritize screening the board and screening them out over getting Containment. My hope is that I can just table my opponent and score a whole bunch in primary and secondary the last few turns of the game. So we end up moving Yvraine's unit from right here out here to get Containment for 3 points. The Skyweavers end up moving up and try to put some shots into this Vindicator. The Falcon disembarks its troops. They get up here. We get in fusion pistol range. And the Falcon ends up putting some shots in here as well. Now, everything pretty much from the Falcon bounced. I did not one time in this game end up getting a Bright Lance through. Our opponent either made the save or I just failed to wound, even though we had rerolls. Bright Lances were awful this game. But the Harlequin troop themselves, getting rerolls and everything, were able to bring down this Vindicator. Now, we moved one of our units of Warp Spiders up over here. Again, we just needed something extra to screen. And we're able to bring down the Chaos Bikers. The Drazar and the Incubi that were over here ended up pushing towards the middle objective, and we're going to hope to just finish off this unit of Legionnaires. The Beastmaster and the Clawed Fiend ended up falling back and just pushed out over here. Again, we're just trying to screen as much of the board as we can at this point. The Warp Talons, they were originally going to go down right here and heroically intervene, but our opponent ended up changing his mind and dropped them back behind this rune over here. In the shooting phase, though, we ended up doing pretty decent. We brought down the Vindicator and the unit of Chaos Bikers, and we're going to get some secondary points. In the charge phase, we end up moving Drazar and the Incubi into this unit of Legionnaires on the center objective. They do a great job at getting rid of 5 Space Marines. They should. They have the profile. They have the ability. This was pretty easy. Then we use a Fate Dice to guarantee a charge into the Cultists on our opponent's home field objective and very handily bring them down as well. So we will be leaving our opponent on just 3 points in primary this next turn, but we're only scoring 3 points in secondaries. We are going to discard Assassination and get a command point as well. In our opponent's turn 3, they end up drawing Bring It Down and No Prisoners. So they bring the Legionnaires up over here. They try to put some shots into the Beast Pack. We actually roll a 6 on that last cannon for the Invulnerable save, which was pretty nice. They bring them down just a couple wounds. The Accursed Cultists back here end up advancing up to this section. They can also advance and charge. They get +1 to hit and +1 to wound when they do so. So they're going to be able to take this from Drazar and the Incubi. The Rhino right here comes up in the range of the Warp Spiders and is able to bring down this unit down to just 2 remaining. And then the Warp Talons that came back in Rapid Ingress last turn are just moving up behind this wall. They're going to get a very easy charge afterwards. The last remaining portion of this was the Demon Prince ended up moving from behind this ruin right here to take back their home field objective. In the charge phase, the Demon Prince very handily brings down our entire troop and Troop Master. We lost the whole troop just to impact mortals and then a few attacks into the Troop Master, and he was out. The Accursed Occultists also dealt with Drazar and the Incubi very easily, and these Legionnaires over here brought down the Beast Pack. And just in case we were all wondering, the Warp Talons did beat the Warp Spiders into absolute oblivion. In our turn 3, we end up drawing Bring It Down and Establish Locust. So the secondary gods are not being very nice to us this game. Hopefully we can take back all the primary and make something happen from here. So we end up moving Yvraine's unit out here. Unfortunately, Yvraine was not able to fire. She was furthest back. She's still behind this rune over here. Our Warp Spiders that remained over here past a battle shock test, they're just going to move up and hold this objective. The Falcon that was down here is going to push towards the Demon Prince as well as the Skyweavers. Now, this Venom ends up poking its nose out over here. The Warp Talons are gone and fires into these Legionnaires, and we're able to bring down 2 of them, which is pretty good for us. In the shooting phase, we are able to bring down the Demon Prince to, I believe, 5 wounds total, which was pretty good for us. Now, in the charge phase, we end up making the charge with Yvraine, the Visarch, and 9 troop into the Accursed Occultists. They did take some extra fire last turn from something. They lost a few of their smaller guys, but we're able to bring that down in its entirety, which was very, very nice for us. Now, the Falcon ends up using Tank Shock and charges into the Demon Prince. We're able to bring it down to just 2 wounds remaining, and then the Skyweavers end up making that push as well, just so we can keep him in combat. We don't want him getting free usage of fallback, shoot, and charge by being a Slanesh unit without having to spend that CP. Or maybe he thinks he's just going to end up beating us in combat. He ends up bringing the Falcon down to 6 wounds, and the Skyweavers walk away untouched. Now, in our opponent's turn 4, they end up drawing Marked for Death and Secure No Man's Land, so they can get both of these. They end up pushing up these Legionnaires and firing into the Venom, which was one of our Marked for Death targets. We chose the Venom, Yvraine's unit, and I believe the Witches. I thought if I chose one of these, the Demon Prince could very easily bring one of them down, and I just have to hope that they don't make a charge anywhere else. So he is able to bring down the Venom. Last cannon makes its shot. He rolls a 6 on the damage. Venom's having a 5-up invuln over the Starweaver's 4+ is not nearly as good. Even though they have stealth, it's fine, but these guys hitting on 4s isn't that unrealistic. So they do bring that down. They get a 5 there. In the combat phase, he fails his charge with the Warp Talons, uses a command point to re-roll it, and fails it again. The Demon Prince ends up attacking the Falcon and brings it down to just 3 wounds remaining, and we are not able to bring down any wounds from the Demon Prince after this. Maybe we brought down 1, but he used a stratagem that ended up regenerating 3 wounds on him there, so he is up to 5. In our turn 4, we end up with established locus from last turn and then drawing overwhelming force. So hopefully we can start getting some secondaries. We are so far behind in the secondary department, but we'll see where we get there. We started this turn. We got 3 on primary here. We ended up getting 5 over here and 5 over here, and we out OC'd our opponent over here. So we are going to start running away with primary as best we possibly can. So your range unit just strings out and is able to, by herself, I believe, bring down all of the warp talons. Maybe there was some other fire that went in. We may have thrown grenades. I'm not entirely sure, but we were able to bring down the entire warp talon squad. The warp spiders stay here. We used feigned retreat on the Falcon, and because the Demon Prince is a monster, we fire in, we bring him down to, I believe, 1 wound, and then we're just going to end up tank shocking at the end of the turn to get rid of him there. Otherwise, everything in the movement phase stays pretty similar. So at the end of the game, we pretty much tabled our opponent. I don't believe they have anything else to play. He draws Established Locus and Storm Hostile Objective. He ends up pushing up his Legionnaires to Establish Locus, so he'll get 4 points there. But we end up dispatching the Demon Prince. We end up moving the Skyweavers up here and the Falcon to deal with the Rhino that was positioned on this objective afterwards. And we are going to claim 3 points for our home and then 20 points for all of the remaining objectives afterwards. We did get raised banners up here earlier in the game for 1, and we just swapped out the witches to get an extra point on raised banners. So at the end of the game, we walk away the victor 86-53. But the real story of it all came down to those last couple turns for us, where we pretty much maxed out our primary. We ended up getting 18 points on turn 4, 23 points on turn 5, and we maxed our primary right on the nose. We struggled with secondaries this game. It was not very nice to us, and we were in a position pretty regularly where we had to push our units into our opponent to get the job done. So we really just had to bypass those, but we were using a ton of CP, so it did make sense. We ended up scoring pretty high, not as much as I would have liked, but we walked away with 26 secondary points, and 10 of them came on the last turn. So our opponent ended up walking away with 29, but we were able to pretty much hold them to about 14 points. They went for a secret mission. They didn't get it. I think it was getting rid of all of our battle line and having one of their battle line units in the home field, which would have brought them up to a 73, which is a lot closer. I really think that this game could have gone either way, though. I think there were different decisions that could have been made on both sides. I've seen our opponent's army just absolutely steamroll into everyone else, and I think he played a little bit apprehensive on the right side of the board. Once we took away all our units and any reason for him to stockpile on the far objective on his right, his natural expansion, it really kind of changed the dynamic. Now, there are a lot of pros to a Ynnari list over a Harlequin list, but I think there's quite a few cons as well. I for certain know that the way we were running this list is not optimal. We pretty much copy and pasted Drukhari units into our traditional Harlequin theme, but we lost out on a few other things. I thought if we could play Harlequins with Beastmasters, it would just make them so much better. Unfortunately, our Drukhari melee units like Lilith and the Witches and Drazar, all of that, while the rerolls are great coming out of a Falcon, I really think they're better suited to be playing around Venoms. Because they are single phase combat, they don't have much shooting. They need the protection after they bring something down. We put a 150 point unit of Incubi and Drazar into a 90 point squad of Legionnaires, and they were wiped off the board the turn after. We put a 170 point unit of Witches and Lilith onto an objective to take Legionnaires, and they were wiped off the turn after by a Rhino. So they need something to protect them. They need the movement shenanigans, I believe, to be really, really impactful. The other thing I didn't really like about this list is there's no lone ops. I think at this point I do prefer the Solitaire over Lilith, specifically for just that. Something to move across the board very, very quickly. Something that can't be targeted. We can hide it behind lines. We can use it to screen. We can use it to do actions or whatever we may need in the first couple turns, and then be real impactful later on. You can be not as aggressive with your deployment if you have a mobile lone op. One of the other things that I'm not super excited about is there's very little battle line in this list. In our traditional Harlequin lists, yeah, we may have 4, 5, 6 units of troops. In a game like this, it could have scored us an extra, 3 points for something like raised banners, or we could have got extra benefits from our troops through one of the other mission rules. So in this list, we only had 2 real battle line units in the witches being split up by that venom. I don't know for certain if I would rather have Cabalite warriors in a venom split than, a Harlequin troop in a Star Weaver. Is it that much more beneficial? I'm not entirely sure. I played with some Cabalite warriors here recently. I've run 3 games with Drukari now, and they're a little underwhelming. To be honest, I love the OC2 and Sticky and all the good stuff, but as far as making things happen on the board, they struggle just a little bit. So some of the pros, though, let's not talk all negative. The Beastmasters are incredible. They could change the dynamic of any game. And if we would have got first turn, I think we would have absolutely rolled over our opponent. So there's definitely something to be said there. I think Warp Spiders are incredible. They serve that similar role that D-Cannons do. We need something in our army to deal with hard targets anywhere they can be. We need something to be able to intervene into a combat in some way, shape, or form, whether it's shooting or melee, at any point. The D-Cannons bring that. The Warp Spiders bring that by being either indirect or being able to just warp anywhere on the board. So just a big block of Warp Spiders is pretty incredible. 2 units in a grenade strat brought down a Demon Prince with Feel No Pain. So they're pretty awesome. I think the Beastmasters bring a ton of extra move blocking. They bring you some durability. We still have all the same movement that we always would have. I think the way to make this work a little bit better, though, is to maybe drop Drazar, Incubi, and Witches with Lilith out of the Falcons and just give them Venoms in order to, get to work. So I do think there's a lot of benefits. I think there's a few negatives. I am not entirely sure if I'm just preferring Harlequins because it's what I'm used to, or if I just haven't dialed it in yet with Ynnari. I know there are some very hyper competitive Ynnari lists, and they're doing very, very well, and they look very different than what we did. So I will probably try to get a couple games in with them as long as it's something that all of you would like to see. So thank you again. I hope you enjoyed. I know this is a little bit different than our traditional Harlequin content, but every once in a while it's nice to kind of spice it up. If this is something you would like me to continue to explore, please let me know in the comments or in the Discord. I will have a link to join the Discord in the description section of this video, and would be more than happy to, talk beyond this. We have a couple very great individuals in the Discord right now posting some battle reports, some really good conversation, and I would love to keep it going. So please like, share, subscribe, join the Discord. Anything you can do means more than you can possibly imagine. I'll see you in the next video.